Hey there, I'm Andrew Miller. This is a new style of pixel art I've developed called FreeBit pixel art. And FreeBit is kind of a loose, expressive style of pixel art with a focus on interesting shapes rather than fine details or control. And if you like it, if you want to produce pixel art in this style, I've got some tips for you today, and I'll go ahead and draw something in the style and go through the process of making it, and you can make your own. It's really more of a methodology than like a strict art style, so I expect every FreeBit artist will create different stuff. But if you do, let me know. I'll be excited to see what you make. So let's go over to a sprite. And we're going to start drawing. By we, I mean, me. And we're going to be using the contour tool a lot. So the contour tool, if you've never used it before, which maybe you haven't, you draw a line and then it just connects the line, the two ends of the line. It's very nice for filling in, for creating shapes, filling in areas quickly. And I use it 95% of the time when I'm creating FreeBit. So we're going to be using that a lot. Get comfortable with it. I'm also going to be drawing using a drawing tablet. This is vital if you're doing FreeBit. Drawing with the mouse is just not going to get the right kind of flowing curvilinear lines that we want here. It's not going to come up with those. You can try it, but I don't think you're going to get the results you want. So go get a pen tablet, cheap small pen tablet. You can get a Wacom pen tablet, or my personal favorite is Zenslabs with an X at the beginning. Zenslabs. I think they beat the pants off of Wacom as far as I'm concerned. But anyway, let's get started drawing here in FreeBit. And you'll first notice immediately, we're going to fill in the sky. You'll notice immediately as I get started here that I am going to be undoing a lot. Let's make the horizon. I've got a shortcut set up for undo, but default should be, Control Z or Command Z. And if you want to start producing art in the FreeBit style, get used to undoing a lot. Because what we really want to do is quite quickly draw shapes. And if we don't get the shape we want, undo it immediately. It's kind of cool. This will allow us to, instead of kind of painstakingly trying to make the right shape the first time, we're just going to undo until we get the shape we want. And then when we finally create the shape, we finally get the shape we want, it will be not only the shape we want, but kind of a loose, flowing, beautiful shape. Let's see. So we're going to go ahead and just do a field of grass here. And you'll notice, there's a lot of, it's really easy to draw kind of undesirable, awkward shapes. But undoing them, so you'll want to set it up so you can undo things quite quickly. And let's just go ahead and draw a tree. So, mostly when I'm drawing here, I'm focusing on kind of getting the shape of something first. That's kind of cool. Because getting a beautiful shape is kind of the foundation of FreeBit. We're not focusing on details right now. We're not focusing on shading or the three-dimensional form of the thing. We're just focusing on, is it a beautiful shape? Is it a beautiful, really 2D shape? That kind of describes the thing I want, or is a good basis for that. If it's a beautiful shape, it's a good start. Beautiful kind of descriptive shape, what you're looking to make here. So I'm going to make this kind of stunted tree that's growing here in the middle of this grassy knoll. And we're just going to flesh it out with some branches here. And really, when I'm drawing a tree, I'm looking for beautiful shapes, but also shapes that kind of resemble the way a tree grows. And I can go into this in more detail in maybe a tree tutorial. But suffice to say, looking up reference going to be very important just for drawing generally. Look up pictures of the things you want to draw and try to figure out their underlying systems. You know, how does a tree grow? It will help you a lot. And then practice, practice. So we've got some branches here. Mostly it's going to be covered up with leaves, but we got a decent kind of trunk here. I'm going to label my layers because I never do this, but since I'm recording, I'm going to label my layers because that's what I should do. Haha. But I never do. Now let's just start to get the kind of bulk of the leaves here. We could do this in multiple kind of passes, trying to get each branch kind of has its own mass of leaves. Then we imagine that this trunk kind of comes up and branches out a little bit more. All right. And then once we have a shape that we like, I dig that. And maybe we can add a few little background elements. Then we will kind of move into the next phase of FreeBit. Because this is all right, looks kind of cool and kind of funky, but it's really not where the real value in FreeBit art comes in. We're gonna finalize something here that's gonna make it really pop. So we've got all these shapes, got a couple of little bushes, maybe some, maybe we'll have some flowers over here. All right. So we've kind of got the shapes that we want. Okay. What next? So we're going to move into the phase of FreeBit art where we are going to be thinking about these shapes as three-dimensional objects instead of 2D shapes. So let's take the leaves, for example. So the sun is coming straight down. And really, when you're doing this part, studying art fundamentals, how light behaves, color theory, all of these things will definitely help you. But we're going to be using the contour tool, and we're going to switch it to lock alpha in Aseprite, so that when we're drawing, we're actually not messing up our shape anymore. I have to get on the tool, actually. We can draw just ignoring the alpha channel and just focus on the shape itself and specifically trying to think of the shape as a three-dimensional shape and how would it be lit if it was. So if the sun was coming straight down, we would expect, some lighter, obviously, leaves where the sun's shining on them. Up here, We're going to have some quite darker leaves down in here where the sun ain't shining. Most of this is going to be dark down here. And we're still working in this kind of loose style where we're creating shapes, interesting shapes, and undoing a lot. But now we're trying to be a little bit more considered about how do we use our colors? How do we communicate the three-dimensionality of the leaves here, and the light and kind of bounce light from the environment and things. Then we're going to get, let's say, like a dark blue even to get a few. That's not quite right. To get an even darker shade in there. Just a few places where the leaves really aren't seeing much sun. And then every once in a while we'll just step back and just kind of look at it and squint our eyes a little bit and see if it's kind of coming out, popping out as kind of a three-dimensional shape. Gonna try to get more of like a gradient of leaves with sun on them coming down. We're also not being as picky with the shapes at this point. We're kind of quick, choppy, still quite interesting shapes, but we're trying to be a little more descriptive and less of a focus on just the making a beautiful shape. Back the shadows off just a little bit. Okay. Put that back in a little bit. Okay. And so we've got starting to get the 3D shape of the tree and kind of a little bit of a leaf texture coming in. Yeah. Okay. Now let's focus on the trunk. So the trunk is going to have quite a dark leafy shadow being cast down on the branches here and on the trunk. And we're going to get a little bit of that leafy texture going in and there. Just a lot of quick little shapes. Trunk's also going to have a little bounced light, a little hot light from the grass. So the sun comes down, bounces off the grass, picks up a little bit of, like, heats up a little bit and bounces back up onto the tree. So we're going to do a little bit of that. We also probably want a little bit of that on our leaves up here. If we can get that looking right. We might just get rid of some of the shadow here. Nah, that's not right. What do we want? Maybe almost a little bit of brown under there. Okay, back to the trunk. We've got the shadow here. We've got some bounce light. Then we're going to grab some of the grass and be thinking about the grass as a three-dimensional shape too. It's kind of popping up and growing around this trunk a little bit. It's still in the shadow, so we're not going to shade it or anything like that, but I'm just going to have it popping up here. Then we're going to go down to the background and with our contour tool, bring up some of this grass kind of overlapping the shadow. And be thinking about how does grass behave as kind of a three-dimensional volume, you know, act like this surface is not just like a flat surface, but fuzzy, textured kind of clumps of grass. Clumps of grass often, usually even look better than single blades. In fact, single blades can kind of be questionable. And yet I always default to drawing single blades like a scrub. Okay, so we're starting to get some more texture here. These shapes out here are going to get cut right now. And deal with those a little bit later. And then we're going to think about adding just some like grass shadow. Okay, so where the grass is kind of like blocking the sun a bit. Maybe a little bunch of flowers out here. Maybe like a smaller bunch of flowers over here. And then maybe just make this, in fact, maybe have some more like lighter tree, even lighter than that. I'm just coming in here at the edge, so we have a little bit more of a story of something else is happening off the page. None of this matters currently with this tutorial. I'm just getting, stuck into this now. It's exciting. I like drawing. I promise I'll get back to FreeBit, in a moment. Maybe a little bit smattering of pink going back in space, too. Space, not like outer space, but, on this awesome field. And as the field comes forward, let's add a little bit more grass detail. Just subtle grass detail over here, because it's getting larger and more textural as it comes closer. Okay, we can see more texture anyway. So we've drawn something in FreeBit. And this is, this might be totally unappealing to you, and fair enough if it is. I know a lot of pixel art is about tight control, and there's some really spectacular results when people are extremely careful and detail oriented with their pixel art. But this also has a lot of charm for me. These kind of expressive shapes, beautiful shapes, interesting shapes, and leaving a little bit of a mess, like we're going to have some, terrible pixel art practices, traditional pixel art practices with orphaned pixels and all sorts of stuff. And that's okay. It's okay, because with FreeBit, it's not so much about that. So if this is appealing to you, then give it a try. Grab yourself a cheap pen tablet and start drawing away. Just remember, focus on shape, undo a lot, and then after you've got the shapes down, then start thinking about everything as a 3D object and trying to have lights and shadows. Bring your art fundamentals, study your art fundamentals, and have fun. Let me know what you make.